facing the digital era.
Buonasera a tutti.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to session number 7, Innovation Technologies as a Vector of Sustainable Social and Economic Development. Certainly, what we're going through at the moment is a true technological innovation, something which is really deeply changing our society and our economies. It is a revolution which is taking place at an impressive speed, something unprecedented. I was looking at the video before, and among the new technologies, AI, or augmented intelligence, as I would rather call it, was mentioned. Its impact on the labor market is measurable not in years but in months. Now, I'm quite convinced that it's important to analyze this revolution. It entails opportunities, but also risks. With our speakers today, we will try and analyze the opportunities and risks of this in the technological revolution. Now the floor to the Deputy Chairman of the Astana Financial Center, Marata Aitenov.
Please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. It's my great privilege to greet the strongest delegates on this conference. Traditionally, on this phase of any forum, usually delegates are thinking about a little bit after the forum activities, but you are with us, which means definitely that the new technologies are on your agenda. I'm here with you coming from the heart of Eurasia, from Kazakhstan, representing Astana International Financial Center. If someone is not aware about the Astana, definitely everyone fully aware about what International Financial Center means. What is this about? You know that well-known financial centers globally in London, Frankfurt, New York, Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, etc. And since January this year, this list of financial centers were added with new one in Astana. If I may say so, Astana International Financial Center is the latest addition among the financial centers, and it includes all the components which makes successful any financial center. What is this about financial centers? It's all about, if using very simple English, it's a paradise for entrepreneurs, for business-minded people. And likewise, in Astana, we very successfully launched every and single components of the success for the financial center. If you allow me, right now I will wear the gun of the hat of average entrepreneur, business-minded person, and will take you with me to the journey to Astana International Financial Center, AFC. First thing, when business person will care about, it's all about the physical connectivity. I will start with the final slide in my presentation. What connectivity means in terms of Astana. We are already nowadays connected with direct flights. As you know, entrepreneurs don't like transit and different other very hazardous routes. They prefer direct flights. and we are connected to Moscow, Frankfurt, London, Vienna, Bangkok, Seoul, Istanbul, London, Frankfurt, and many other destinations. Within Central Asia region, we are connected to every capital of the neighboring countries. By 2020, we are planning to connect with the rest of the important financial centers, including Rome, Hong Kong, Singapore, New York, Shanghai, Tokyo, Zurich. I believe after such a successful conference back in Astana, we will again talk to the government to connect with direct flight Verona too, because I met these 2 days a lot of business-minded, very oriented individuals. Next point, for the average business person, let's imagine he arrived to Astana, it's about the communication. Slide 7. So within AFC jurisdiction, we accepted the main official language as an English language because it's a main bridge of communication between any parties around the world. From that perspective, any entrepreneur within our jurisdiction can officially use English language. Another interesting things for the entrepreneurs is liberalized control of the currency. AFC participant can use any currency which he prefers within our jurisdiction. Preferential tax regime up to 50 years. Participants are exempted from corporate tax income, other tax benefits. Visa regime. Nobody likes visa requirements. It's simplified within our jurisdiction. Labor regime. Any employer looking for the quick access to the employment regulations, it's also provided here. So AFC by now it's a one-stop shop to any entrepreneur. Bespoke legal framework, just as mentioned, is supported by the rule of law. When it comes to the trust and confidence, everyone, global investors community, raise questions about who are the judiciary. Is there any dispute resolution authority? Yes, we successfully established it within AFC. Very prominent British judges are sitting on the panel. Former Chief Justice of London, in London, Chief Justice of England and Wales, Lord Wolfe, Chief Justice within AFC Court. Another prominent judge, Lord Fox, he was formerly Minister of Justice of UK, etc. We have 9 judges on the bench representing different area of expertise. It's construction, banking sector, financial sectors, intellectual property, which allows any AFC participant to have trust and confidence in this judiciary. Another institution which we established is Astana International Financial Center Arbitration Center, chaired by Barbara Doman, well-known arbiter in these circles. We have more than 20 arbiters sitting in this panel, which on a fully fledged platform provides bespoke dispute resolution authority. What very average entrepreneur thinks about the trade, about the commercial ties, about the securities. For that purpose, we also very successfully established stock exchange in partnership with Shanghai Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, and what we envisage there, probably almost next month the trade will start on this stock exchange. And as of now, all in core pillars and success components of Astana International Financial Center are in existence, and we're aiming to develop capital markets, asset management, private banking, Islamic finance, green finance, and in line with our topic of this session, new technologies within fintech. We have established a regulatory sandbox which allows to any entrepreneur to test his ideas in this regulatory sandbox and go live if the market confirms of his commercial reasonableness. So this is the general picture of Astana International Financial Center. For now, it's all about our today. In line with our topic, I want to talk a little bit about our future, about our tomorrow. So it's all about new technologies. Can you imagine that all this platform, bespoke regulatory regime, all these independent regulatory bodies, all these components of success, this paradise for entrepreneurship exist and available by one touch in your smartphone. And you don't need to travel anywhere. You just trade, you establish your commercial partnership, you find your partners around the world just sitting as where you live in your hometown. Is it good tendency or not? Will it affect negatively other socioeconomic ties or not? That's the question which we're discussing within our financial center. Putting it in a very simple way, let me bring small example. When I was approached by a person who arranges this conference, and we were asked to speak on this topic, the first question which raised in front of me, it was, which language should I use to communicate to the audience? Yes, it may be my native tongue, Kazakh language. Probably I will not reach out to even few participants. I can speak. I may choose a language of communication, Italian. Yes, good option. I may cover main portion of the participants, but unfortunately I don't speak Italian because our main language is, official language is English language. Now I'm speaking in English. That's our today. Let's imagine what happens with the same situation tomorrow. With new technologies, small device, almost invisible, plug it into your ear, you can speak your own language. And any participant coming from the other part of the world, totally not understanding you directly, through that device can easily understand what you are talking about. But the thing is, you can witness that these 2 days, we're supported by brilliant, outstanding team of translators, simultaneous translation. With this new technology, will industry of ancillary translating services evaporate? Will these people who are in this industry just be in front of the choice? Should we train them to find new skills for them? Or another very simple example is just a choice of a forum, this location. With new technologies, tomorrow it can happen that via new technologies, you'll be in the same room without traveling anywhere. Will it affect drastically ancillary service providers like air carriers, hotels, restaurants, because people may stop traveling. No need. Time is essence, time is asset, and it also may very drastically affect all our other industries. That's the type of the questions which we discuss internally within our financial center when we develop new technologies. And with this question, I just want to end my presentation with warm welcome, invitation to Astana, and with trust and confidence that raising this kind of the questions will resolve properly all our attitude to new technologies coming up almost tomorrow. Thank you very much.
La ringrazio molto per questo intervento e devo dirle che...
Thank you very much for your comments. Recently, I was invited to take part in an event on new technologies in Kazakhstan, and I was really surprised to see the progress made there, also in terms of regulation, which you duly mentioned. Now, I'll give the floor to Vartan Delanyan, Director General of Accenture, Russia. We were talking about the impact of technology. Now, in this case, Mr. Delanyan will talk about the impact of technology in our economy and in our society. A country managing director of Accenture is the best person to talk about that. So I will give him the floor without ado.
Presentazione.
Добрый день, добрый вечер, наверное, уже, уважаемые члены форума. Я имею возможность представлять здесь компанию Accenture. Мы являемся и партнером, и спонсором Веронского форума. Наш логотип хорошей компании с банком Интеза, Пирелли и другими уважаемыми организациями. И прежде чем начать выступление, я хотел бы лично от себя выразить большую признательность организаторам форума в Вероне и лично профессору Фалика за неутомимые усилия по поддержанию и развитию диалога между Россией и Италией, Россией и Европой. Я считаю это очень важным, и именно поэтому я здесь и как руководитель компании, и как физическое лицо выступающее. Еще раз спасибо организаторам. Ну, возвращаясь к своему выступлению. Компания Accenture – большая международная компания, публичная, и несколько десятилетий назад она сделала упор на работу в сфере информационных технологий. Наверное, из всех крупных консалтинговых компаний, это компания с большим удельным весом IT. Конечно, это не только IT, это стык бизнеса.
Among the many large consultants, it seems that we are those that have done more to acquire information technology. In Italy, we have a large amount of practice, and in the past few years we've been working in Russia too. So Accenture has been cooperating for a number of years with the Davos World Economic Forum to discuss the impact of information technology on society and on economy. I'd like to give you some, share with you some facts and figures and then draw some conclusions that I hope can be interesting for all managers of companies that need to support their company and ensure its competitiveness. Which is the development phase in which we are at the moment. There's a lot of discussion about digital revolution, but what is the cause of such revolution? Here we can see the effect of the presence of so many technologies. On the one hand, their cost is dropping, so they become accessible to many. And on the left-hand side of this slide, you can see some figures suggesting that things that were extremely expensive just a few years ago are now very cheap. If you superimpose all these technologies, you have a kind of multiplication effect, multiplicatory effect. So, cloud services, Internet of Things, Web 2.0, cloud, mobile, stimulate further development when they are combined together. That's something we all see before our eyes, and through this combination, the life and the kind of consumption of people are changing. This is another slide that summarizes 7 main trends. The new industrial revolution is usually called Industry 4.0. And by the way, in St. Petersburg, we gave a presentation on this new phenomenon. Now, this revolution is driven by digital technologies. What is the impact of this phenomenon? Let's think of a few facts that concern the life of human society and of entrepreneurs. In 2017, we did a research to assess the impact of these technologies on retail sector. Research showed that in the next 10 years, change will be much greater than the change we have experienced over the past 40 years. Growth now is not due so much to the big international companies, but rather to small and medium-sized companies that sometimes can oust big business from the market. You may have heard a number of cases in which this has happened. So the leaders' classification has changed completely. IT and fintech are changing the banking system completely. But our life and the life of our children or rather, research has shown that 65% of children will work in a job that does not exist as yet. This is why they need to learn from the very beginning to change 20 or 25 different jobs during their lives. All of this means that also education has to be adjusted, the purpose of which has to become to help people to adjust to innovation and to change. But going back to our research, we have supported the European Forum of Davos since 2016 in terms of digital technologies. So we cooperate with the forum organizers to help them understand the effects of digital technologies and to see how this may have repercussions on society as a whole. The darker part of the slide indicates future prospects, and as you see, in the next 10 years, the impact of digital initiatives is going to be really huge. We have identified here 7 macro technologies, and we try to understand how they could be applied in 12 different sectors. We made an assessment of 135 different digital initiatives. If we consider the overall effect in financial terms, we see that by 2025, they will imply a saving as high as $100 trillion. In terms of their impact on business, we evaluated the redistribution of income and the efficient use of capital. When we move to the gray bars on the left, we see that societal impact was assessed by estimating the advantages for consumers in terms of time and money saving, the increase in jobs, and the decrease in accidents, working accidents. All of this shows that we are going through major changes. We also analyzed another initiative concerning artificial intelligence. We understood that if this process goes on at the same pace, we wanted to understand what the impact on society will be. We analyzed with about 12 OECD countries. The use of artificial intelligence technologies by 2013 will imply a 40% increase in GDP in work productivity and will double economic growth in all countries. I believe that even in Russia, if this process is managed intelligently, this is going to happen. There are many interesting initiatives, especially in the banking sector, and in fact there are areas where Russia is ahead of its Western counterparts. So if these technologies are properly applied, we'll be able to overcome a number of problems concerning demographic imbalance. All of this means, however, that we have to apply these technologies and explain to people that they must not fear these technologies. They will still find a job. But technologies are nonetheless a challenge because people will have necessarily to acquire new skills. They will need reskilling and retraining. In the second part of the slide, you can see that in the United States, artificial intelligence might erase about 9 million traditional jobs, but about 40% of people who lose their job might find a new job in new sectors, those where new technologies are being taken on board. So in the light of all this, we said to ourselves, what must be the right attitude of business leaders to become more competitive and to make their companies healthy? I think that, first of all, they should learn to process data effectively, focusing on companies' competitiveness. They should, in addition, reskill their workforce on a constant level, quite constantly, and they should also capture value through ecosystems. The first time I heard the word ecosystem was about 6 years ago. I remember I read that on a magazine. And now the word ecosystem has become very common. What's especially interesting is that 50% of the companies that are trying to find new market niches and are using these ecosystems for this very purpose. So, make data part of your DNA, reskill your workforce, and find those partners that can be able to support your company, or with which you can, through whose help you can remain or become a market leader. Thank you very much for your attention.
Sottolineare una delle tematiche che è stata trattata in
I'd like to go back to one of the topics that were mentioned during this presentation, and that is reskilling and education. There's a lot of discussion about the importance of investing in new technologies. I think we should focus as much on the importance of investing on reskilling and education to make these technologies understandable. In a few years, we may have a completely different labor market, completely different jobs, and this is why I think it is going to be extremely important to provide future workers with new skills and new know-how. I'm very pleased that you pointed that out, because I believe it was really a key issue. And now I give the floor to the next speaker, Vladimir Shipkov, Executive Director of the Association of International Pharmaceutical Manufacturers. Mr. Shipkov will discuss the impact of technological innovation in the pharmaceutical sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the floor. I'd like to start by thanking you for being so patient and bearing with me. Probably you are the most resilient following the, well, in line with the policies promoted by Mr. Fallico and all his team. I actually owe very much to him. He has worked as a missionary to sort of create bridges among our countries. And actually, it's a great honor for me to participate in the Verona Forum for the first time. At the same time, I feel proud, and also I like the fact that the forum's location is in this palace. Why? Because 17 years ago, this palace, this building, was renovated with the help of one of the members of our association, GlaxoSmithKline. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that this renovation work was done with the collaboration of the pharmaceutical industry. I'm here to represent the Association of International Pharmaceutical Manufacturers. It also works in Russia. We have European countries represented, including companies like Chiesi, Menarini, Zambon, Angelini. And I hope that after today's panel discussion, there will be more manufacturers in our association, because we have really established a very good dialogue. They are the flag people from Japan, India, overseas, and other countries. We work in complex conditions, and we were talking about this yesterday. Fortunately, our company and also our sector, our industry, is not exposed to sanctions or counter-sanctions. This doesn't mean we don't have any problems, but we can look at the future in an optimistic way. The business has or shows a stable tendency to grow, and this is good for the Italian business as well. Let's talk about innovations in the pharmaceutical industry. Again, I'm proud of this. I have to tell you that the world pharmaceutical industry is investing and reinvesting in R&D as part of innovations. They're investing more than any other sector, more than the gas industry, the IT industry, the automotive industry, the space industry, etc. Why? Because the industry works in a field of great social responsibility. Therefore, there is a request, a demand on the part of the world public health for the development of innovative drugs which respond to the needs and challenges of mankind, not just in Europe, not just in Eurasia, not just in Russia, but everywhere. Challenges for the global health industry. Experts and specialists believe that with the discovery of the human genome, in the future there will be great revolutions in gene therapy and also other therapies, mainly to solve the problem of tumors. We're talking about pharmacogenetics. It's a new sector that opens up new prospects for the growth of innovation. Now, the latest developments in the various fields of technology. In the pipeline of the pharmaceutical industry that I have the honor to represent here, there are more than 7,000 new products, new molecules being studied and prepared. Look at the numbers. We have a lot of molecules that have been developed to solve the issue of cancer and also cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, etc. I believe the pharmaceutical industry will make great achievements in the short term, because both in Europe and worldwide, initiatives are promoted which are rather promising in terms of attaining serious results. What I'm thinking of is, for example, the IMI initiative. It is a private-public partnership in Europe between the European Commission and the industry to be able to exploit the discoveries of leading research institutes for the development of new drugs. This initiative has just celebrated its 10th anniversary, and soon we will have new developments coming about. Certainly, major investments are at stake here. And in order to develop a molecule, you need great or major investments. It takes 10, 15 years to develop a drug, but the industry is ready to wait and feels quite confident that there will be a return on this. There are other initiatives under the umbrella of AIPM. The companies are competitors, but world leaders have decided to join their intellectual, technical, scientific, and financial efforts to make sure that certain molecules, certain preparations are developed and subsequently marketed, especially for the treatment of cancer, so as to meet various needs, not just in developed countries, but also in developing countries. Let's see what happens in the Russian Federation market. I'm quite sure that the Russian market has a tremendous potential to grow further. For the first time in the recent history of Russia, the healthcare system, or healthcare, was defined as a priority investment. The Russian president promoted very practical TPIs for increasing life expectancy for the population at large. Furthermore, this will be supported by additional funds and subsidies. For example, to use IT and digitalization to implement a revolution in this field. Furthermore, we have made great achievements in our industrial policies. In the industrial policies of the government of the Russian Federation and the international industry, which is not left out of this process. It invests a lot in localization, in the transfer of technologies and know-how. We have a project which is called Pharma 2030. It should be approved next year, and it's about establishing partnerships to develop innovative products with R&D, with a view to export these products to third countries. What about the partnership forums? Well, indeed, 100% of our members establish partnerships with local players. Many companies have greenfield activities, including Italian ones. There are examples of successful partnerships in research and development, and this is bound to continue. Overall, according to Ernst & Young research on the members of our association, in the last 10 years, our members' investments in the Russian economy were so huge that we can talk about having consolidated and established the situation quite soundly. More than $30 billion have been invested by many of our members, 24 of them. We're talking about direct investments. If you extrapolate these figures to all our members, you see that the figures are quite huge. There has just been, well, we've had a very effective panel discussion on the Eurasian pharmaceutical market to introduce it to the Italian and European entities. It's the first project which results from a joint effort of the presidents of our countries. It's also supported by the members and the industry. It's the single Eurasian pharmaceutical market that we're talking about. So I'll invite the European pharmaceutical market to analyze the situation, make decisions, and do everything possible to make their business grow in Russia and Eurasia by developing joint R&D initiatives and targeted projects. We, the Association of International Pharmaceutical Manufacturers, are ready to help you in all possible ways. Thank you.
La ringrazio molto anche per...
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you also for this final invitation addressed to Italian businessmen in the room. As you have noticed, we left the political part at the end. I feel that politics can play a major role in this revolution we're going through. They will have to be those that manage it and govern it. I'm saying this to foreigners mostly because Italians know very well the two mayors I'm going to introduce. Today we have the honor of having with us two mayors that are among the most active in the area of technological innovation. I know you also have your flight back in just a couple of hours, so I give the floor first and foremost to the mayor of Catania, Salvo Pogliese. Catania is called the Etna Valley in Italy, and it's the place where many big businesses of this sector are located. Thank you very much, Riccardo. Before I get into this topic, I wish to thank President Fallico for his invitation, and I also want to express my appreciation for this lovely and interesting initiative. I was very interested in listening to the various panels that were organized yesterday. There was a clear perception of the economic and political problems brought about by the sanctions imposed upon Russia. I am the mayor of Catania, and I'm proud to be so. I took up my charge 100 days ago. Before that time, I was a Euro MP. So after 2014, I experienced directly some of the most important discussions on this topic within the European Parliament. And I'm happy to say that I voted against all the proposals made to the European Parliament, even though I belong to a party that was in favor of its final aim. So we were all against actions, against sanctions, and I was happy to hear this support in yesterday's discussions. I formally apologize to leave shortly after my presentation, as Riccardo was just saying. I also wish to thank Chiara Pendino for her kindness in giving me the chance to speak before her. Our two regions are going through a similar economic condition. We have almost 16,000 billion euros deficit in my city, and I think it's about 5 billion for the city of Turin. But I'm not going to go into that. I want to go into this question of new technologies as vectors of social and economic development. sustainable development is described as the development that meets present needs without impairing the capability of next generation to meet theirs. In this respect, institutional attitude has changed, including the European Union's attitude. Just think of the 2020 10-year strategy that has selected some important objectives to change our development model. The three priority objectives are to reduce gas emissions by 20%, to increase energy production from renewables by 20%, and to increase energy efficiency by 20%. These objectives have a direct impact on the metropolitan areas of our country. We have started working in this direction. We joined some funding offers for the improvement of energy efficiency in public offices and schools, and successfully. And I think it's the right way to go. On the one hand, this implies significant energy saving, in addition to improving the safety of our buildings, and at the same time, it implies a drop in emissions. We're trying to capitalize on new technologies in many sectors, like public lighting, using some sensors that can be used to change the amount of light with a saving of 15 to 20%. And in our budget, this is the third item in terms of size of investment, with an investment of about 7 million euros. So this innovation is going to be a way of saving money also for public bodies. Then we talked about car sharing, parking management using apps that can be used not only for the payment of parkings, but also to identify free parking areas or areas for handicapped people. Or just think again of the impact of these technologies on tourism management or on security. We got some funding for installing over 250 new cameras in our city. Not to mention the access to a wide band in all cities, so that citizens will be able to pay taxes, ask for certificates of any kind, and to reduce waiting time for all these requests. We have decided, for example, to use social media much more than in the past, since we are aware that administering local agencies has really become very difficult. We decided to do it because we love our land, but very often we have a scarcity of resources. In most cases, we have debts, also because there's less state funding now, so our margin of maneuver is limited, and we must necessarily improve the relationship with citizens, establish a closer connection between politics and people, improve the quality of services, and here technological innovation can be extremely helpful. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dicevamo prima, innovazione tecnologica, rischi e opportunità. Abbiamo visto...
We talked about technological innovation, risk and opportunities. We heard about the risks of the impact of new technologies on jobs, and the mayor just talked about new opportunities. Politically speaking, technology innovation, some new technologies enable citizens to become more actively involved in public management, and sometimes they can also imply more transparency and less cost. Turin is one of the cities in Italy where greatest efforts are made in this sense, and we are pleased to have the mayor of Turin, Chiara Appendino. I would ask you to illustrate the recent project called Turin City Lab. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. I also want to thank Professor Falico and his people for this invitation and for all they do to strengthen relations between Italy and Russia, which is very dear to our heart. I want really to thank for inviting representatives of cities as well in this panel. We tend to forget that it's estimated that in 2030, 70% of people will live inside cities. This has a major impact, two impacts. First of all, it means that cities and their representatives have a great responsibility in the management of all this technological change. And secondly, we have a greater responsibility in meeting these challenges because we know that one of the key issues for urban communities is to improve citizens' quality of life in line with the 2030 objectives. Very often when we take part in discussions within our communities, there's often a discussion about the effects of technological revolution on employment. I think that representatives of institutions must take a step beyond this discussion and turn a risk into an opportunity. How can a city manager do so? Technological innovation will influence all our lives. Just think of mobility or data management, revolutions that will impact also on citizens and on policymakers. The city of Turin launched this project you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, considering the important role that cities will have to play. We want to change the notion of smart city. Very often, smart city is a phrase that comes up frequently when we talk about IT. But the idea has always been that a city has to buy from a company a smart service. Conversely, we feel that cities have to become protagonists of technological innovation. Considering that 70% of people live in cities, and because services are going to change, the city must become a protagonist in imagining this revolution and managing the resulting processes. Torino City Lab is a project that implies a dedicated team of people to ask companies to test technology for the first time in the city. One of these is the automatic driving. At the moment in Turin, there's a small car running around without a driver, managed by the 5G network, 5G web. We are interested in this because we might establish a close partnership with a private company that needs to test what they do in a city, and they need to test a product that will then be sold on the market. It's interesting, it will have an impact on services and on people's quality of life, and we establish a relationship with a private company that can help us also become the first city testing a service. Recently, we tested also the use of drones. This may appear a minor issue, but we are the first city in Europe that accepted to have a 13-minute event with drones in the sky. We didn't simply do that because it was nice to see, of course, but we were the first city in Europe organizing an event of this kind in a city, and the first city that established a protocol with the ministry that is taking care of drones experimentation. And we are the first. We helped the company to test their products and get the necessary permits. And we take up an important role internationally. So we tested these two things in the past few weeks. So they are a way of becoming drivers of change. We often think of how technological innovation is changing services, but we often tend to forget that this technological revolution also changes the role of policymakers. We're talking about self-driving vehicles. Of course, this is not envisaged by our driving regulation. So we need, first of all, to change the regulation in line with technological innovation, avoiding rules to lag behind. Secondly, we are the first city in Italy that is developing a subway line on the basis of the telephone cells to see how people are moving around. It may appear banal, but it's a completely different approach to the design of a subway network. Of course, that means changing your way of thinking and your way of working, but we feel that it can be much more effective. So there's a need to change the way of thinking in the public administration and then use the city data to drive change. The third issue is to find a way of meeting these challenges with a scarcity of resources. For this City Lab project, we have little resources, and we use human resources and very few financial resources, and yet we have been able to develop new services and acquire a position on the international sphere. So whenever you have to make a judgment, you tend to see risks first and foremost. I think innovation is a great opportunity. Certainly it will have a compression effect on employment, but we have to adjust both regulations and training opportunities to exploit this innovation to the benefit of everyone. These challenges are very important in learning, also to learn and to help young people to learn how to face future challenges after 2030 and 2040. Thank you.
Grazie Sindaca.
Thank you very much. I will repeat your words. We shouldn't be afraid of this challenge. It's rather a highly stimulating challenge. I'd like to add something. We have representatives of major businesses and also political leaders and institutions. And I think that we should discuss these topics as much as possible, because we can't leave part of the society behind. Unfortunately, many social divisions create problems within countries. Indeed, this is a revolution which can change our societies. I'm deeply convinced that discussions of this type can't be made only by the stakeholders and by the experts in the field. We should open up this discussion to the rest of society, to the whole of society. I'd like to thank the speakers and also thank you for bearing with us. This is the last but one panel discussion. Thank you.